So, what is a food desert, and why is Walmart moving out of communities in record number? And is it because they're black? We're going to talk about that today on Further Everyday Spoiler. It's not because they're black, but we're going to talk about it just before Media Matters. You know, you got to get the whole clip. With that said, I'm joined by a full house. How's Miss Nikki today? Good. How are you? Doing well. In the chair of theology, Clint in the chair of philosophy.
Man, I look like a freaking grape.
You look like Miss Blueberry again. I don't know how you do it every week. And then we got Miss Melissa sitting in the chair of culture. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Glad to have you there. And Mr. Steve.
Doing good, man. Doing good. Setting up, being politically incorrect.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
and then
sir.
Josh.
And I'm here with my dad today.
Oh my gosh. Definitely not his dad, but maybe, who knows? I'm sorry, Gilberts. Anyway, with that said, we're off to a rocky start. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about what a food desert is. So Clint, this is a term that you hadn't really heard before this week, is it? Not really.
Not at all.
So in show prep, we were talking about, it's like, what is a food desert, and are they racist, and where does all this come from? Because, of course, you're going to hear this in the media. Actually, I want to listen to a couple clips about food deserts, and I want to kind of try to use the media talking points to introduce us today, because it is important that they are the ones who are saying this. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to react to this as we go. Starting with cut one.
Jean Ann Thomas Botley has shopped at Family Food Center in Toledo, Ohio since she was 4 years old.
This is the place to be. Once you find something that you love and treat you with respect.
But today, the 58-year-old worries dollar stores are now threatening this local staple.
It's supposed to be a store to help the community, but it's taken from the community.
At the start of 2022, dollar stores together operated more than 34,000 stores nationwide. That's more than McDonald's, Walmart, Target, and Starbucks combined. Right here in Toledo, Ohio, when it comes to dollar stores, there are 1, here's another, 2, and here's another one, number 3.
So the big complaint is that in these food deserts, we have dollar stores replacing grocery stores just for a note. And the problem with dollar stores is something they're going to get to in a moment. So the complaint is lower quality food. Keep watching. Stop if you have a question.
Altogether, over 35. In March, advocacy group the Institute for Local Self-Reliance published a study on the impact of dollar stores on predominantly rural, low-income, Black, and Latino neighborhoods. Its findings?
When they come into a community, they tend to just pull just enough of the sales away from that grocery store.
We have to call the suppliers, ask them for prices, ask them for deals, and they don't offer us as good deals as the big chains.
Here you go, ma'am. Thank you.
That's
now
really
a small
important.
community in Toledo, led by senior pastor Donald Perryman, is fighting this effort.
This was the pride of Toledo. It was a community where Black dollars
shutting down
circulated, Black wealth developed, Black professionals were.
And today, what is it like?
Deserted and abandoned.
Perryman hopes Toledo will join the more than 50 cities already enacting laws limiting dollar store expansion. The study also found that as local groceries get squeezed out, neighborhoods are left with food deserts, areas with limited access to affordable, nutritious food. Even when a Dollar General has fresh produce, it's not a full supply, correct?
Correct. So we have about 16 feet typically in most stores of fresh produce.
Do you think your supply of produce is enough to adequately feed and provide the nutrients communities need?
Well, I think it's really important to remember Dollar General is not a grocer. We are here to be able to provide the general necessities that families need on an everyday basis.
In a statement to NBC News, 2 other national dollar chains, Dollar Tree and Family Dollar, said in part, our stores complement grocery stores and bring economic development to communities we enter, including helping to alleviate the effects of food deserts in urban communities. As for Family General Food Center, ESO says the prices are no match for the people.
I know half of my customers by name. When they walk in, I greet them by name. I don't think they can get that service at a dollar stores.
Because all the time I get emotional just talking about it because they are family.
An abrupt closing for these 4 Walmart stores, really just about 5 days after these communities found out about Walmart's departure. Now, the residents are, of course, frustrated with the loss of this store, and already having been a food desert, they claim. They plan to voice those frustrations in a rally here later today. Walmart says it just hasn't been profitable in these neighborhoods, claiming to lose tens of millions of dollars over the years. Now, the concern for many, like you said, Mark, comes with another pharmacy leaving, some healthy food options, as Walmart being a key option for those options. Now, residents say they just feel left out.
I would like this area to look no different than other areas that I visit. There's Mariano's, there's Whole Foods, there's Target, Walmart's. What's so different about this neighborhood? We pay taxes as well.
People feel abandoned, right? I mean, where are the healthy eating options in the neighborhood? You know, y'all want us to continue to go to,
why did they invest in
fried foods? You know, we need some healthy eating options.
Not just money. That's
now, Jamal Cole, who you just heard from there, the founder of a local organization, plans to host that rally set here for noon. They plan to voice their frustrations, and Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson says the city plans to work to find different ways to fill the void that this loss is leaving behind. Mark, Kate.
That is most certainly one of the issues is theft, right? That is certainly one of the issues, but there's actually more. Mm-hmm. There's actually more, and we'll get to it in a little bit. But Melissa, you said something interesting. You said they weren't able to invest, or you said money.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at, and this is going to sound horrible, but it's a horrible truth of what the inner city looks like. But if you have these, let's just take H-E-B, for example, you have a big chain that's out there. It takes a lot of money to invest in those big chains. And if they're not going to, if they're spending so much time doing loss prevention, things like that in order to keep the theft from occurring, it's not profitable for these big companies to invest in these inner city communities.
For those who are listening outside of Texas, H-E-B is a local big grocer. It's the local Texas grocer. Yeah. All right. By the way, primarily, a lot of our audience on audio is actually, there's a significant amount out of Florida and New York, so they probably don't know what H-E-B is.
Oh my gosh.
But
sucks. Don't worry about it. I'm not missing out.
Hey, I like my H-E-B. You're oh, of course you are.
I mean, I work for them, so.
I mean, Kroger's probably the same way. I'm like, you will not find a Kroger in middle of downtown Houston.
Yeah.
You'll find an Amazon market.
But you actually kind of got close to it there, Melissa. You actually got close there. You won't find one in downtown Houston. There's a couple of reasons why. And one of them is tax burden. We're going to get to it in a little bit. But I want to go to Miss Nikki's point. Why does Portland, Oregon, why do they just lose REI? By the way, I don't have the news story here, but they just lost their downtown REI. They just moved out. Why did they move out?
What people don't understand is what she just said, the investment. People will go where they can make money. They're not going to go where they're going to go bankrupt. But also, there's insurance that these stores have to carry. And insurance is going to be based on risk. The cost of your insurance will be based on the risk. And if you're in an area where there is looting, you know, we've seen that in the last couple of years, and the insurance company is going to pay your claim. But if it happens again, your premium is going to double, or maybe even the insurance company may even cancel you. So then you can't get insurance to cover your business. So it's not just about it. There's a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah, and there's also like the land. Like you don't have like in these suburbs, you have land that you can put a 1,000 whatever square foot, you know, chain at. You don't have that luxury in these inner cities. They're just, you're so community locked in that there's nowhere to put a good retail grocery store that provides these healthy options. Correct.
That's part of it. And then also in the more rural areas, the other part looks partly like what Miss Nikki was talking about. And of course, in Chicago, what does it look like today? Let's look at this clip. This is a news clip from Chicago.
Chicago leaders are vowing to do more to protect the community after large crowds wreaked havoc across the Loop over the weekend.
Nate Rogers is live with that story for us first at 4. Nate? Yeah, that's right. I'm Anthony and Natalie. City leaders have been speaking about this all day long following this unruly behavior by large groups of teenagers over the weekend. First, I want you to listen in to an interview with Mayor Lori Lightfoot on her reaction to this situation.
This is the vast majority of the young people who came downtown because it was a great weather and an opportunity to enjoy the city. That's absolutely entirely appropriate. There are a few that came with different intentions, and they have and they will be dealt with. But I'm not going to use your language, which I think is wrong, to say that it's mayhem.
Now, although Mayor Lightfoot disagrees with this description, this was indeed the mayhem experienced over the weekend. Hundreds of teenagers at 31st Street Beach, reports of fights breaking out. Also, someone throwing a brick through a parked city vehicle. Then along Michigan Avenue outside the iconic Millennium Park Saturday, even more chaos. Young people jumping and dancing on cars, also on CTA platforms, smashing windows. In fact, 2 teens were shot in the first block of East Washington Street. Also, a man in his 40s was allegedly attacked by a group of teens. Just a short time ago, we sat down with 20th Ward Alderman Jeanette Taylor, looking at some of the footage from this weekend, listening to her reaction. How do you justify something like this?
You don't. I don't justify this behavior. But think about this. Would they be downtown if they had things in their own community? Had we passed the peace book, like young people asked us to, stuff like this would happen. Absolutely, you should be held accountable for doing things like that. But they would not be in these spaces if we provided them. We told y'all this was going to happen 15, 20 years ago. This is what happens when you close schools. This is what happens when you take away after-school programs. This is what happens when you don't invest in them on the front end.
Behavior, and they had to. There was a certain amount of accountability,
right, and
for students.
I'll tell you this:
from all their students.
Yeah.
If they call me out to go run, heck no. For one, I'm not running unless I have a match. I'm not running. No, number 2, they're not dumb. Okay, those kids aren't dumb. They got a big crowd because there's zero risk. Because a big crowd, you can't catch everyone, so everyone has that mentality. Oh, I'm not going to get caught, but well, I'm fat, so I am going to get caught, so I'm not joining. Okay,
how dare you?
How dare you? But like, that's the mentality most of them probably have, that hey, if I go, I won't get caught. I'm gonna do stuff that I already want to do, that's already in the back of my mind, because you know we all play violent. Okay, I play violent games, but I'm pretty violent.
But there's no repercussions for these kids that do get caught, because honestly, they'll be let out the next, in a couple hours.
But God forbid you make a mistake on your tax return.
I think what you need to talk about is 100 kids just didn't all decide at one time, let's all go do this.
Oh, no,
somebody organized this. This is organized.
Oh gosh, definitely organized.
No
doubt about it.
Well, it's the same organization that they have whenever they do all the mass protests. When I was living in St. Louis, they had this one guy he actually managed and brought together all the people and told them, you sit at this major freeway, you do this. And he instructed them how to wreak mayhem. Sorry, Miss Lightfoot. Or whatever you want to call yourself.
No, she knew that it was going to happen. Okay, if you listen to how the way she words, it seems way too like you already knew this was going to happen, so that's why you spoke in the manner you did.
Yeah,
she was 100% complicit, and although she's not the mayor anymore, this is her circus, and this is the fallout.
She still knows what's happening. She's still in the ring. Okay.
Oh yeah, she knows. She knows. So here's another cut real quick for us to listen to.
Judy, gunshots, fists flying, and passersby stomped into sidewalk curbs. The extended lawlessness in the Loop resulted from a lack of leadership and no plan to deal with unruly crowds on an unusually warm spring night. That tonight, according to a former top Chicago police official who gives the I-Team a blunt assessment of what went wrong and why. Crowds swept into the South Loop, Millennium Park, and Michigan Avenue, outnumbering Chicago police, who had to scramble officers to the scenes, even though veteran cops say this was not unexpected on a warm Saturday night, given the recent history on similar occasions.
First of all, was there a plan? I mean, as a district commander, again, you're responsible for that district 24/7. Did you have a plan? Did you sit down with your leadership team?
Gene Roy was chief of detectives at CPD when he retired in late 2016. Roy talking with the I-Team about the melee on Michigan Avenue, these scrapes on State Street, and police who appeared to have little command direction, no helmets and shields, and helter-skelter communication.
So why would they have?
Roy is concerned about patrol officers possibly being put on scene without adequate plans or direction.
You have a plan, you have the pieces all assembled, you have your toolkit. It's like a mechanic. You go to work with a toolkit every day.
And with Chicago just securing the 2024 Democratic National Convention, ex-Chief Roy says the city needs to do better.
You know, you have to wonder if somebody in Washington at the DNC is going, did we make a bad choice here? This is a critical time for the city.
Yes.
We have an interim police superintendent. We have his management team doesn't know if
all led to
they're
this.
coming or going.
So what's next? Roy tonight says the plans have been used before, starting with CTA stations.
Put officers at the key L stops, and you prevent people from jumping the turnstile and going downtown. You prevent them from starting the evening off breaking a law. Have them turn around, go home if they don't have money. Make sure there's a plan in place.
Note that if they don't
Make
have
sure
money.
that you're coordinated with other agencies.
Roy recommending pre-positioned police units in suspected hot spots and conservative tactics, but he would not rule out cutting off CTA lines or raising bridges if necessary.
There's no realization of what the problem is here, which a huge part of it is that man is basically evil. Man is basically flawed, and you have to have a system of governance. Let me ask you something. So what does this have to do with the price of rice in China? Well, or with food deserts specifically. When did all of this just happen, and how soon after did Walmart announce the closure of 4 stores? It was one after the other. It's one after the other. And you want to know something? And by the way, link in the description below. Mr. Steve put a great link to a CNBC 30-minute doc on this, and it was really interesting. Link in the description. These stores, Walmart, runs on a 1% margin. For those of you who don't understand that, that means that for every $100 that Walmart puts in to running the business and paying their employees and trying to up their minimum wage and trying to have the best deals on the plate, they make $1. So they're making $1 for every 100. Those Chicago stores were averaging a negative 4%, and the rest of the nation was subsidizing. Couple things. It's not the location as much as it is the safety of the location. Do you think this, seriously, that there's a little Walmart just down the road from us, if you guys know the one I'm talking about, the one in Tomball. There was a time where I would not go to that Tomball Walmart. I would drive extra to be over here in Spring. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know, if I'm down by 1960, I'm going to not go to that Walmart on 1960 if I have children with me.
Correct.
I'm going to come 10 miles north to go to Walmart because of the way that area feels. It is cheaper in gas for me to drive 20 miles than to have my car window smashed out and my belongings taken out. So do you really think that it's an issue of racism, or is it more of an issue of perceived safety?
Look, it's not Walmart or any of the fast food.
You have to scooch in, bud.
And it's not Walmart or any other main chain suppliers. It's not their fault that most violent kids are black. It's not their fault. It's neither the kids' fault either. It's this stupid critical race theory they keep teaching in school that we refuse to argue or refuse to talk about, which my teacher used to teach that, hey, why are you trying so hard? What do you mean why I'm trying so hard? I'm in all pre-AP classes, wrestling on the side and trying to make, my GPA better. What do you mean, why am I trying so hard? And she wouldn't answer my question because she knew I already knew what she was talking about, because I had addressed it in one of my essays. She was like, what is our main problem with school? And I was like, critical race theory. Boom. And she didn't like that. I got a C on that paper.
Well, here's the thing.
Could have been my grammar, but
here's the thing. You're pretty close to on point. and I'm going to say this, and I'm actually quoting a couple of different people, Tommy Robinson and Jesse Lee Peterson, I believe is his name. Correct me if I'm wrong on the name, but they pointed out very well. You look at the crime stats, 50% of homicides are committed by one group, and it's not the women, it's not the old men, it's the men from 14 to 35.
And what are we telling those groups? We're not telling them that you're going to be punished for what you're doing.
Correct. Because you have a privileged status. Mm-hmm. And so bad ideas have consequences when you put them into rule of law. And it all comes down to, where is our theology? Where does this all stem from? Is what we think about the basic values of the universe. What is governing morality?
Well, as I shared with many times before, is that there are certain things that have to be applied within society for society to function and be successful. It doesn't matter where you are. If you want a successful society, there are certain things that have to be done. And stealing, no punishment for stealing, is not going to help your society to progress. Because if you don't punish bad behavior, then you will always have bad behavior. And that's what, Ecclesiastes says in 8:11. When a crime is not punished quickly, people feel it's safe to do wrong. That's the English Standard Version. If you don't punish it, so tell me all those kids who got arrested, whose parents are going to be paying for the damage. Did anybody get arrested? Is anybody paying for the damage? Maybe not. And if not, then the next time it'll happen again. Because there's no reason not to do it.
So that leads me to a question. When government has a role in society, and what is that role? And when they fail to fulfill that role, how does that affect the poorest of us?
A biblical description of government is to promote good, to punish evil. And when government does not punish evil, it is promoting evil. That's really what it is. There are certain laws. I mean, we don't have enough time to go through all the biblical statements, but there are laws that are in the Old Testament that should be in our society today. You need to protect people's personal property, their physical well-being, and their land, which personal property and land. But yeah, there are things those things need to be protected. And that's the government's responsibility to see that those individual things are protected for people.
Absolutely. Josh?
No, I was just going to say scriptural references, Exodus 20 through 23.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And so how does that affect the poorest among us when the government is no longer keeping a safe standard? And this is really important because you have Lori Lightfoot, you have a lot of those local commissioners saying, Walmart, you can't do this. How dare you? You promised you would invest in into the community. And it does affect the poorest of us when we have food deserts. It does create a situation where people do not have what they need. When the government doesn't fulfill its job, how does that create that outcome?
Well, the people in those communities are hurt the worst. Now they have to travel farther to get their food supply because they're not going to have the choices. And sometimes that travel is going to cost them more in gas or maybe in bus fare, and it's going to be it's a sacrifice for them.
Well, a lot of these people don't have the money for a car, right? And so it is Correct. Literally in bus fare.
So I'm going to use an analogy here to kind of describe it. It's about being a good steward at the end of the day. And I liken it to somebody who has a family that lives in an apartment complex where this one person who pays the bills, they're not doing the right things and they're damaging the apartment and they're causing problems for all the neighbors around them. And then the apartment complex comes to them and says that you're going to be evicted, and we're going to evict you because you guys are causing damage to the place and you guys are causing damage to the community around you. And so that you get evicted, and it wasn't the fault of all the other 4 family members that you had. It's your fault. And it's bad. It's horrible because good people, the people who are genuinely well-meaning, get punished for it. But it's all because of that one person that you get evicted. That's the same exact way that these Walmarts are working, where we have good stewards in these communities who are doing the right things, but because there's this one or 2 or 3 or how many ever bad apples you want to call it, doing these negative things to the Walmart, they're saying, well, we're going to have to evict out of this place because there's too much damage being caused here.
And that's 100% it. And by the way, it's an incredible disservice to the conversation for either side to inject race, but rather culture. I really, really like, again, Tommy Robinson, very controversial fella with a darker pigmentation. He said one time, he says, we don't need to ban black people. We need to ban N-words, is what he said. You know, very controversial guy, very outspoken. Go check him out. He's interesting. Not everything he says is right. Some of it's really off, but you know, he's not wrong. He said, if you are a white person, this is Tommy Robinson, this is a black guy speaking. He said, if you're a white lady and you're walking down a street and 50% of the homicides are committed by a guy that looks like insert A, are you going to step to the other side of the street? That's not racist. That is playing the odds. Now, maybe there's racism also injected in there. Okay, that does happen a lot, more often than it should. But what we should, instead of focusing on that, because I think that totally smears it wrong, is we should focus on the people who are being miseducated by our government, that they cannot do something greater. And unfortunately, the schools that do that the most are the ones that get away with the most, and because there's no school choice. And so you have some really, really crummy teachers. Like 90% of teachers are awesome, but there's some subset of them that are awful, and they're creating and generating people who are running on the street like World War Z.
But you got to punish the bad actors, and
oh, yeah.
that goes to your point, is that there are 90% of teachers who do the right thing and who are good, but then there's the 10% that ruin it for the other 90%, and it's honestly the reason why it shouldn't exist in the base case, because of the fact of that bad 10%. And it kind of goes to this point with the Walmarts and with the local communities, is that we have these bad actors, but the thing is they're not being punished for it. And so because there's no repercussions for bad action, like Ms. Nikki had stated, these companies are thinking to themselves, well, if this is never going to get better, and there's nobody's incentivizing it getting better, then what's the purpose of us even staying here as a company? Because this no longer becomes about investment. This comes, like I said, it comes about being a steward of your community.
There's safety even for the people that you're hiring. There's like a liability for that.
Yeah, and and this is another thing, nobody in these communities like the people who act bad and violent.
Correct.
These people do not like these people, and they cause the community's damage.
So in a way, I'm tired of people saying it's the black community's fault. I really dislike that, and the reason why is it's like saying that men are the reason for oppression. It's like men are somehow taking away from women. Men are somehow, it's like, well, men populate the highest paying percentage of jobs. It's like, well, yeah, they also populate the lowest. You know, men do much better in this world. They have a higher standard of living. Also, men, yeah, maybe 1% or 0.25% of them do. But then the bottom percentage of men are that, and women are somewhere in between, right? It's the same thing when we kind of reduce it down to it's the community's fault. It's certain parents' fault. It's certain teachers' fault. Maybe we should be looking at them instead of generalizing the whole population of any group. Maybe we should be focused on what's actually the problem. And it really boils down to a lack of good ideas. And because we've shifted away from the Judeo-Christian ethic. And that brings me to the chair of philosophy. And I want everyone to pitch in after Clint has a say on this, because it's an interesting question. When a bad ideology causes suffering, what should the Christian's response be to the people who hold that ideology? How should we go about discussing the issue of food deserts when someone brings that up, where should we go first?
Well, so to deal with any bad, ideology, we should show them the complete picture, because most of the time, these people that have this bad ideology, it was already opposed onto them. It wasn't their choice most of the time. Most of the time it's through, the environment, how people taught them. So the best way to deal with those narrow-minded people is to show them the complete whole picture, right? Because sometimes they only have like a piece and a piece of here, but they don't have the complete picture, right? They're so just straight-minded that you can be like, oh.
They're indoctrinated.
It's hard to show someone that's been so deeply indoctrinated the truth, because you have to get them point by point and to show them how all these points connect into a bigger picture. And then everyone has that, click moment where, oh, I see the picture. But it's so hard to find that and not losing them in the conversation, because they're so just barrier after barrier, and you have to walk on pins and needles, Legos, those are the worst, to have a full conversation with them without them shutting down, screaming, hooting and hollering. And we're just having a peaceful conversation here. I'm just trying to show you the picture of Christ, and you just won't listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna offer a very controversial take, but it's something that we all would have probably agree with to some degree. I don't know about the degree, but I guarantee you, if the death penalty was on the table for these children, I use children loosely because I don't even know if I
19-year-olds,
because Josiah was king when he was 8 years old, so mind you, different circumstance, but still, they're 14 years old and they're capable. At that time in the Bible, those people were capable of working a job and making some money for the household. And getting married, if that was on the table, or if you knew that you would get beaten or by the local community because of the damage you caused to it, I genuinely do wonder if you would even consider doing these actions anymore.
Well, exactly. Like, you want to look to some place where the left, you have a lot of blue check marks on Twitter. They go over to Singapore. And they say, oh, Singapore, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. You know what happens if you chew gum on that street?
You get caned.
You get caned.
Beat the crap out of you.
Publicly. I'm not against public caning. I'm really not. I think it's a great idea.
I want to go to Singapore just to see it.
What's interesting when you watch a lot of these clips, pay attention to the age range of these people that are doing this. You're not seeing groups of people that are like in the topper age group of the 14 to 35 people. Okay, you're seeing it mostly in the
college age and high school
ages. Okay, now
groupthink.
What creates that type of mentality and those types of actions? One thing, lack of father in the home.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what creates that in those communities? The government. And why does the government create that? The check. Why does the check create that? Because they can't get it if the father is in the home.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the father in home, and it's proven, statistically proven, you can look it up. We've done podcast on this. You can go back and look at the statistics, watch them, okay? And it shows that with a father in the home, kids are more likely to not be in prison, not to have these types of problems, and more likely to grow up to be more productive people than people who are not having fathers in the home.
Someone fact check me on this, but I believe it's 80% or higher of those who are in prison had identify as an absentee father household. I believe it's higher than 80%. So that's part of it, and I want to get to that thought more in a few moments, but I know Josh has something he wants to throw in.
I just wanted to say something funny, man. all of my people at the World Economic Forum and all my people, my climate change activists, you guys are all for population control. Why don't you want the death penalty for this stuff?
No, my question is,
You'd think he'd be all for that, right?
Yeah, I would think.
Come on, man. Look at the clot shot.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people. But then it's scary though, because what about the people? Because think about the people.
Yes, please.
Because my
Get
thing
in there.
is, if you're threatened with, if you knew the death penalty would come to you, and that's the justice that would be instaured upon you, or you would receive a beating for it. Sorry, or you would receive a beating for it.
There's an audio.
But to go back to
He's
like,
putting on a tinfoil hat.
It's like if you continue to do that action, you deserve exactly what you got because you knew what the consequences would be if you did it.
Well, and so that's one of the things people say. So do you want to put to death this person or that group? It's like, no, but I want there to be a very, 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 very strong impetus to not do it. I don't want to go back and hunt people down. And by the way, for those of you who say that we want to have the death penalty for women who commit abortions, if you ever did that, it could not be retroactive. That would be insane. The idea would only make sense if it were for future offenses only after a certain date. There would have to be, but some people on the some people in the pro-life camp say we want to go back and retroactively. It's like, that's not a good idea, guys. That's too far. For all of the reasons, that is a bad idea, because what was permitted before is now not allowed. You're going to go back and you're going to create a witch hunt. Do you want restoration, or are you just out for blood? Like that's kind of sick in the head. Same thing here. Do we want to have stricter policies where we go hunt people down for past offenses? You can't do that. But if you set up a strong barrier now against these violations where people are stomping folks' heads in, I'm sorry, that's attempted murder. I'm actually okay with the death penalty being labeled. If you're kicking someone in on the head and in the chest, guys, the one punch kills where you take the xiphoid right here, this bone, you break it and you run it up through the heart and the lungs. One good kick, on the base of the sternum at the xiphoid process, one good kick from the belly towards the chest, the top of the chest, will kill someone. They will be done. You doing that, in my opinion, is attempted murder. So those people, we can have that conversation, but at the very minimum, they can't be back on the street the next day.
One good kick in the temple will kill you.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
I mean, or give you brain damage.
Yeah.
But going back to the Singaporean law, that because my dad, he went to Singapore for a business trip, and they actually did a tour of the prison systems and how it works. And he said that they actually saw people, the old school chain gangs with the big ball, and they were pretty much like linked to each other, so they couldn't escape. But they knew that, okay, and I really think that Singapore mirrors probably as best as like what Moses Law, that if you kill somebody, you're going to be put to death. If you don't kill them, but you do damage, then you can live, but you're going to pay restitution stuff. So I do believe that if you look at Singapore and what they do, it mirrors Moses Law very well.
There are some strong similarities.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. That's why they have clean streets. That's why they have a beautiful place. That's why they have a lower cost of living than some of the other surrounding nations. For what you have, by comparison to that's why there's prosperity in Singapore. That's why it's a hub, is because they have rule of law. And that's something that we're losing very quickly. By the way, just totally random, but that women's NBA player who got arrested in Russia for bringing her weed, or was it oil? I don't know what it was. But she knew. She knew better. She knew better, and she ran into it. And the stupid thing is she played stupid games. Yes, we want to get her back. But she played dumb games, and then we gave the dealer of death in exchange for her, the merchant of death, for this stupid WNBA player. And instead, in the middle of a war with the Ukraine, we gave Russia back their primary arms dealer, sorcerer.
Right.
So, I mean, they were laughing at us.
And not only that, we had 2 other Americans that were over there that've been in prison for a lot longer.
And were actually there for good reasons. Like they had actually served God and country.
Exactly. And we're doing what with who? We're trading this
WNBA
death
player
dealer for a WNBA player who went over there thinking she's got enough privilege to bring in THC oil and she's going to smoke it while she's over there in Russia and get away with it because she's a WNBA player? Come on.
I don't know if it was.
No,
she was just privileged, and it's just a general American thing.
She just thought she could get away with it.
Yeah,
Thought she could.
A white and pasty girl would have done the same thing. They're just as stupid. Sorry, Americans are stupid.
American sports hero, so-called.
Yeah.
They, feel privileged because it's a sports person.
So one of the things that has, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no.
One of the things you have not addressed is when the stores close down, there's a lot of people out of work in that neighborhood, and they're probably from the neighborhood. And so now, where are they going to go and get their next job because that store is closed? That's one thing that wasn't addressed. Another thing for politics, how do you run? How do you run for a political?
Hold on that question, because I want to get there. I want to get to Melissa real quick, because we've kind of skipped Melissa. We've kind of gone all over the place here, and that's great. I do want to get to Melissa's chair, though. When the culture has abandoned the Judeo-Christian ethic, we see the failure of the culture. How does this give us an apologetic opportunity?
So, and I think there's like probably dozens of adjectives that you could use for what are.
Okay. Thank you, Josh.
I'll be right back.
He'll be right back. BRB.
To what our work ethic is, and I think it all kind of boils down to discipline. And when you don't have discipline in the family, don't have discipline in the schools, don't have discipline in society, things kind of do run amok. And I think you brought up a good point in our Bible study about apologetics, where it's not meant to, be somebody overhead with a Bible and say, this is what you're going to do. It's the opportunity to save that person. And it gives us the opportunity to give them something a little bit better. You can have this life, or you can have this life, and I will give you something that reward is so much better than what you're going to have if you go down this path.
Well, and it's actually transcendent, but that's the reason why it works.
Because if I see my best friend, having something better, having a better job, having a better opportunity, and actually doing better in society, I'm gonna want what they have. It's human nature to want, I don't say to envy somebody, but it's to envy someone that has that better life. And so I'm going to follow suit, and there's going to be a cycle where you're going to improve society. You just got to give them that better option.
And so just to build off that, because we don't do Christianity as self-help. That's not the purpose. The reason Christianity works is because it's transcendent from this world. And let me explain what I mean by that, because you're striking on pay dirt there. Christianity works because there are longings in the human psyche, in the human being, the soul, that are only fulfilled by a transcendent, omniscient, omnipresent, and all-loving God who created the universe and who sent his son to die for our sins. And that new relationship is what the human desires. That fulfillment is what the human being desires. So when you have someone who needs, they have needs that need to be satiated. They have desires. They have a desire, a longing for family, a longing for fulfillment. You talk to a lot of these guys who are out in the street, they are looking for their fulfillment. A lot of people who come in, who've come into this church, who've been involved in gang activity. A lot of folks who've been involved in gang activity, they come in and they say, look, I was looking for a family. I was looking for fulfillment. And you find that in Christ. And there's only one place that'll fill that. And so we do have the answer to the culture's need right there. Thoughts?
I think you're pretty much on point there, John Arthur.
Let's dig into the chair of politics here, because we're running up on our time. When the government fails to provide a safe and clean environment, one would believe that politicians would wish for change. One would think that they would see that maybe we're failing our city, so to speak, borrowing from the arrow. How has the pursuit of leftist ideology impoverished these neighborhoods, and why do we keep pursuing these bad policies? Why has Chicago been ruled by the same people for 100 years, give or take, and things have only gotten worse?
Give me the money. Money. Well, people like getting handouts a lot. People like getting money for nothing. You ever hear that song? It's an old song. I'm sure Nikki remembers it. It's called Money for Nothing.
You saying I'm old?
I know Pink Floyd.
Shots fired. Shots fired. Take cover.
It's called Money for Nothing. Okay. You don't have to do anything for money. People, believe it or not, and I know there's a lot of people out there that have a hard time believing that, right? Like to receive money for doing nothing. Isn't that hard to believe, John Arthur?
And the reason the politicians give him that money, you're talking about welfare. The reason why the politicians continue to give him that money is because it's a financial exchange. Right. It's money for power.
Power.
Votes.
Exactly. And they get that power by being voted into office. And then you get power from being in office. And then you get power for being in office for lengths of time. The longer you're in office, the more power you gain by the amount of influence that you get over people from the length of time that you're in office.
How do people go into Congress and they have nothing to their name and they come out 100, 200, 400 million dollars in the pink?
I'm gonna be politician.
Exactly.
So there was a really good movie, and I think I've referenced it before, but it's The Distinguished Gentleman with Eddie Murphy. And it was a 1990s movie. It was really funny. It was a funny movie where he no real spoilers, but this con man, Eddie Murphy, goes into a meeting, a fundraising event for these hoity-toity politicians, and then he overhears, well, then I'm going to go ahead and back out of the race at this time, and I'm going to be able to pocket the money because the PAC is here and this is there, and I'm going to be able to raise all those funds, and then if I exit at this exact moment, I'm legally allowed to keep this $1.5 million. And Eddie Murphy's like, wow, I'm in the wrong racket. And yeah, there are opportunities like that.
I'm gonna go be a politician, guys.
No, you won't. You're too good of a guy to do it for that reason.
And an answer to your first question, and how has it, impoverished some of these communities, is, for one, you defund police. Then what do? You decriminalize lots of crimes. Okay. You reform the bail system. Make it where it's easier to
get back out.
People to get out. And what do? They go right back and do it all over again. Or you don't have any kind of punishment for doing anything. Or they don't arrest you for doing, say, like out in California. If you're stealing and it's under $900, they're not going to deal with you.
Wait, what? Are you serious?
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
No. So that's why you've got videos in Walmarts in San Fran. I didn't show them today because we're talking about Chicago primarily in Portland. But you have people walking in, they grab a whole rack of clothes, they throw it over the back, and they just walk out. They smash out the cupboard, they grab all the diamonds, they put them in the bag, and they walk out. So Portland lost 2 Walmarts as well.
Yeah,
I'm in the wrong business, man. Goodness me.
It's evil.
Yeah, it's horrible, and they've decriminalized so many things, and people know they're not going to get in trouble. And where does this all occur? Guess where?
In Democrat cities.
Democrat-run cities. All of it. All you got to do, look it up, people. Look it up. Do the research yourself. Don't rely on me. Do the research yourself.
So, and links in the description, as always. But I want to go ahead and move over to the chair of economics. And I want to get Josh's thoughts here, because I know Josh has got some thoughtful wisdom to inject here, and kind of hooking back to our original point. When people kind of reduce this, I think they do a serious disservice. Why do we see this happening? Why do we see this happening primarily in black and brown neighborhoods with food deserts? Why do we see it there? And who ultimately benefits? We've kind of already talked about it, but how are they benefiting from this behavior that generates food deserts?
I'm just thinking, sorry.
No, it's all good.
So the big thing is, and I think it's more, I think politics is really tied into this.
Yeah, it
is that when you do have food deserts or places where food security is low, you're more likely to rely upon the government for aid because that's the only spot where you can see it, because it's just the most widely available thing there. And so those people will come to you, the government. And kind of what Steve's point was is that when you have somebody in your back pocket like that, where they're relying upon you for everything, you almost have this obligation, you feel like, to continue putting these people in office and to keep supporting their activities, no matter how bad it was, and no matter how much they were a part of the reason why it got there in the base case, because they were refused to put in policies that improved the situations of the people. And that's really the sad part, is it's a weird gaslighting. I hate that term, but it's a weird gaslighting where they've somehow convinced these people that they weren't the reason why they got there in the base case, and that now they're the savior of those people, and they're going to save them through the government's money.
So here's a hypothetical to your point. Imagine that you're a single mom and you're on welfare, and you are on EBT, right? Or some sort of food stamp.
Mm-hmm.
And you are now in a situation where Walmart moves out of your neighborhood. It's not safe. You're not a problem.
Right.
You're not part of the issue. My gosh, you're not part of the issue here. But you have your food stamps. And now you have Republicans come along and they say, hey, we want to get rid of food stamps. But hey, it's all I have now, and it's helping me with, I only have a Dollar Tree around the corner, and that's the only thing I have now. And that's my only option. I would really like to have a Walmart. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to vote for the politician that wants to ban Dollar Trees, and the one that's going to try to keep Walmart or penalize Walmart to stay, and the one that's going to keep with food stamps. So what does that do for me in the long term, Josh?
Yeah, and I actually wanted, so this is another big thing. I think the government has, and I'm not talking about the local governments anymore. I'm talking about the federal government. I'm talking about the Senate and the House. I do not think that they have any problem increasing spending. Oh, sorry. Is this better?
Come back a little bit more. There you go. Right there.
I don't think the government has any problem spending money at that level, because especially for the people that are on the Democrat side. But heck, even the Republicans spend a lot of money, and we do it with wars. And that's how we got that omnibus spending bill passed, is because a lot of Republicans jumped on board for it, unfortunately, because they saw political compromise. Oh, we can get something out of this too. Which, by the way, let me tell you, big money's all around. It's not just for the Democrats; it's for the Republicans as well. But I think it ultimately ends up benefiting the Democrats considerably more. I think it ultimately benefits the Democrats considerably more, because when you have that big spending increase, it is by proxy going to mean that the inflation rate is going to probably go up.
Yeah.
And if the market crashes and then the inflation, or if the market keeps going down, the stock market keeps going down, which is it's one of the few ways that everyday people like me and you can get into the market and really make some money by investing into some companies. If those stock market prices go down and my value of my stock goes down, and also my spending, the price of everything I buy goes up, there's a solution that these people have presented to these people, which was EBT and food stamps and welfare. So when they have things like the inflation rate going up and the price of goods going up and rent going up and your stock values are going down, well, the only side that's okay with bailing the people out through welfare systems is the Democrats, because Republicans are typically more conservative on the spending, or they should be, and they're not, unfortunately. But that's the way everyday people think about it too. Everyday people know that the Democrats are the people who do this. So guess what? It's like, oh, well, the government just increased the amount of money I'm going to have to pay for some eggs or for some milk at the grocery store. But they're also going to offer, but this one group of people is going to offer me help for this stuff that I currently am not able to help for. Oh, I'm going to do that.
Well, and that right there is the summation of the issue. You nailed it on the head. And that's where Republicans have not been a good example of godly governance. They need to stop
spending. They need to stop spending. Like, I do not care how much war money you're promised. You need to stop taking that money, because you are hurting everyday people and you're hurting yourselves. Ultimately, that's like, what is it? That's cutting off your nose to spite your face. So not only are you hurting the everyday American citizen for something that we shouldn't even really be involved in or have our hands in at all, with the Ukrainian war. And we really need to get out of it, because we already have a bad precedent of what happens when we get involved with wars we shouldn't be a part of, because our spending goes up and we really screw ourselves over in the long term and the short term. But also, you're helping them gain votes when you pass these bills.
Because there's no difference. Republicans are the same money being spent without the fun. And the fun, I'm talking about drag queens and transgendering children. You are just you're socially conservative, but not economically. And that's where you lose the middle, by the way. And that's where you lose the chance to win people over. It's not about politics. It's about good and evil. And when we start to compromise consistently, by the way, has the church done this on every single front? I wonder why we lost so many people in the last 3 years, after COVID kind of showed us who was and wasn't actually going to church for spiritual reasons.
And the thing is, for me too, like I'm very much economically a conservative guy, very much so. I always tell people, don't spend beyond your means, and that's a principle for life. And heck, there's things out there that if it were socialized, I would consider, but at the same time, on the vast majority of things, I just do not get it. I do not get it when these people accept these bills. Because I don't know because in this most recent bill, this omnibus bill that happened back in December, I don't know if you remember it, but this was like the first major bill where I've seen a lot of Republicans actually push back on fellow Republicans for wanting to pass this bill and make it the biggest headache possible to try to get it passed. But because there were so many people who were like, I want to go home for Christmas and I want to go home and be with my family, even though they're screwing over the American people.
It's a lack of fortitude. And what that ends up doing is, when we pass those omnibus bills, we allow stuff to slip through. And by the way, the other thing is taxes. When we're talking about food deserts, we're talking about taxes. And here's the last thing for the economics before we wrap up for the day. Chicago, I don't know if you all have ever tried to do business in Chicago, but let me give you some experience. As someone who does a lot of shows, who moves in shows and runs shows,
you have to use union labor.
You have to use union labor. And do you know what that looks like? Let me tell you what that looks like for those of you who don't live in a union town.
It's terrible.
You have to pay a union driver, even if you deliver it yourself. And when you get there, you have to have union workers at the loading bay coming into, say, a hotel to do a broadcast show. Okay. Even if they don't touch your equipment, you're still charged at the $50 an hour or $100 an hour, whatever the heck the rate is. And then when you get in, you have to be inside, and then you have to pay technicians for the lights, technicians for the sound, technicians for the, I don't know. Union. Whatever the heck it is, they just bill it on, even if you are doing the whole show yourself. That's why just doing a show that should cost $20,000 will cost you $70,000 to $80,000, and you see no appreciable difference in the quality. Yeah. That's how much it costs the organizers to do a conference or a show, just because of the union labor.
And the thing is, like, some of these union laborers are really good, but I find that a vast majority of the ones that I've talked with and that I've gotten to work with on Show Freight, which, by the way, the accounts I manage they're all Show Freight accounts. So I have to deal with this in Boston and in Chicago and in San Francisco at the Moscone. And so I've had to deal with it at all these places. And what you'll find about these laborers, like, they're really not that good and they don't treat you well.
So you have unions, but then even worse, you have a higher tax rate, and you have individual. By the way, here where we live, there's one tax rate where it's like 25% property tax, where they were attempting to pass that. It was some incredible property tax that they were trying to do in a local Houston, Texas ISD. It was some insane rate where the total tax rate would have been 25% by the time the school got done taking it out. It was the state and then the school. So imagine you have, and by the way, I don't have to tell you what kind of ISD that was. I'm just saying it lines up with the worst sorts of governance. And so these ideas have infected our communities. What we need to be doing is we need to be focused on winning people to Christ, and then everything else will follow.
No, you can win them to Christ. Excuse me, you can win them to Christ, but then you have to educate them.
Well, I was going to say everything else will follow with education. I was literally saying that because you're right. You're right.
Beat you to the punch, though.
Because what Clint was saying earlier, and I was going to point back to Clint. Clint said something important. He said, these people have only what they've learned. And you remind me, a wise person one time said, never despise someone for not knowing something that they never had the opportunity to learn. Don't despise someone for not knowing something that they never had the opportunity to learn. Instead, educate them and be a part of that. Closing up for the day, final thoughts from the Chair of Theology about food deserts.
Well, I think it's a really challenging situation, and it doesn't matter who's in the government in the local area, because you can't get somebody to go in there and start a business if there's not going to be profit at the end of the day. Nobody's going to go in there to go bankrupt. So you have a real problem that you got to solve.
Correct. Clint?
One thing for the kids, man, if you're going to act like an adult, you better be ready to take it like an adult.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, but like, if a kid confronted my mom and he was 17. Well, long story short, they both got whooped as an adult. Okay. My mom didn't do anything. If you're going to confront a woman, especially in front of me, and on top of that, my mother, and complain after I'm done with y'all about being minors. No, the moment you got in front of my mom's face, started cussing her out, is when you dropped your minor crap and gave me full responsibility to whoop the both of y'all.
Yep.
Right on, top knot.
Melissa.
This is what I hate about like the whole the food deserts, is that when you don't have access to the healthy foods, you have only access to the junk food. And honestly, when you put junk in, you're going to get junk out, and you're not going to be able to, either with being educated or with retaining what you're learning in school. I'm like, you're not doing yourself and your body any favors. So there's got to be an alternative. If these chains are not wanting to go in, there's got to be something else that we're offering them as an alternative, so they do get the quality foods that they need so they can live a productive, healthy life.
McDonald's.
Oh my gosh. No, I mean, I really hope so. I really hope so. But the thing is you can't expect a private company to do that. You can only expect a market to open up when things are safe and when they're profitable. And that's one of the things. One of the ladies, actually, the CNBC show, link in the description below. This one lady says Walmart's taking away their stores. I had the image of Walmart coming in with a giant forklift or crane, literally picking up the Walmart and like moving it. Like, no, that's not how business works.
And you know what?
They've been losing money for 20 years on this store, and now it's violent. And they said, let's leave.
You know what's interesting about this is that they blame Walmart and not the people that are causing the problem.
And
that's one of the problems.
And the politicians, and this is where I wanted to come to at the end, the politicians are the ones that are blaming Walmart, even though their policies and their bad ideas are what are causing the problems.
Exactly.
Mr. Steve.
And that's one of the things I was going to get at with these food deserts. The problems that are created by the politicians with their politics and all of their policies that are created, whether it be legal policies, whether it be law enforcement policies, whatever they impose on law enforcement. And granted, a lot of it has to do with law enforcement.
Yeah.
Because there are no consequences to anybody's actions. And of course, with the policies of handing out checks with no fathers in the home, and that's always a consequence for, problems with kids, especially with male kids that are in the family, because they're harder to control, by women than other females are, young girls. And that's just a proven fact.
You haven't met my mother.
My goodness. Josh.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
So my biggest thing for everybody out there, become monetarily and economically self-sufficient. And what I mean by that is understand that anything that we have comes from the Lord, that it is a blessing from the Lord. But I promise you that the solution is not to depend upon somebody else for your income. And what I mean by that is not necessarily being employed at a company. I'm talking about whenever somebody else is like, you are completely relying upon that other person for your source of income. So get involved in the market, get involved in the stock market, get involved in the ways in which we can freely invest into other companies, but also, like, I hate to say it, but get a job. I hate saying that. I know, but get a job. I mean, that's how it starts. And I know it's not going to be fun working at a McDonald's, or it's not going to be fun working at a Walmart, because you probably have to deal with a lot of different stuff that happens there. But I promise you that that's how everybody else started. Nobody else started. I mean, except for the very privileged, the very, very rich people, the elite one, like the 1% of the 1%.
Yes, the Bernie Sanders,
like the Donald Trumps of the world, was like, I got a small loan of $1 million. A
small loan,
but that's rare. But at the every normal day people, we had to start somewhere.
So that actually leads me well to the closing, just from the producer's chair. I want to say something, and this is a controversial take, perhaps. Do it. I'm going to quote Morgan Freeman here, and he said, "You say there's no opportunity here. There's a bus leaving every day." Josh said, "Go get a job." Guess what you can do? You can leave these bad areas. You want to see what's happening in Texas? Texas is exploding. Want to see what's happening in Florida? Florida's exploding. Want to see what's happening in Tennessee? Tennessee's exploding. You know why these states are exploding? Because people are taking that bus ride. A Greyhound is $125.
Yep,
that's a lot of money. I understand it. Find a job somewhere else. That's not easy. That's hard. As someone who has been reduced down to a backpack before, I'm not saying this from a position of no knowledge. I've always been blessed in my life, but I have lost everything down to the clothes on my back and my laptop bag. Okay. And yes, I'm privileged to have had a laptop in the bag. I understand that, but I've been reduced down to that. It's okay to start over, and it's okay to start somewhere new. If you need to leave a city that is not safe, try to find somewhere that is and try to leave. That's the hardest thing I can say. But you know what? If you are without opportunity, go find it. And if God is leading you to move, go move. If he's leading you to stay, become part of your local structure and try to save your area. You can, whatever God's leading you to do. There was a time for Sodom and Gomorrah that God said, it's done. Lot, take your family and leave. There's also a time to be salt and light. Pray about it. See where you land if you are in such a place where it is hard to get food, where it is hard to get good food. You can always go to the Dollar Tree and get a can of beans, but that lettuce is good stuff. So with that said, if you like this podcast, like, comment, share, subscribe, all those good things. And thank you for over 180,000 downloads on the audio side. And we are slowly growing, slowly inching along on YouTube. YouTube, you know, thank you guys. Thank you for doing that.
They don't like us.
At least we know that, yeah, they don't like us. At least we know that we're right over target.
Jesus loves you.
Rumble, share, hit that Rumble button, and make sure that if you're on YouTube, you hit that notification bell, because subscriptions don't mean a thing. And with that said, we love you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Toodles.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what is your favorite junk food that you would find in Dollar Store or the Dollar Tree? What is your favorite piece of junk food that you would buy?
What's a Dollar Store?
Oh, probably something with chocolate.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
Dude, they had the big old bags of popcorn that have like the weird butter, but that's like not real butter, and you know it's not real, and that has like
But it's so good.
300,000 grams of salt inside, and you're just like, and then a gallon of water.
I can't believe it's plastic.
Oh, sorry. So bad, bro.
Go ahead, Melissa.
I'm sure you can get them anywhere, but like the vanilla Oreo double stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you like that stuff.
Gross.
Big boxes of hot tamales.
Come on, Josh.
Man, my favorite thing was those boxes of Tide Pods. No, I'm joking.
Oh my
No, I'm
gosh.
joking. No.
Please, no.
That explains so much.
No, but I'll be honest. I don't think I've ever shopped at a dollar store, a Dollar Tree. But I think if I had to say something, whenever they had like the zebra gum, like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like the zebra, the colored, the zebra striped gum.
I didn't hear a word you said. Oh my gosh.
Wait, the zebra striped gum.
There you go.
Zebra striped gum.
There you go. Okay. Okay. So with that said, I don't know. The soda you can sometimes get name brand soda in there. Depends on which day you walk in. But
You can buy your groceries there.
I know.
I prefer. I like an Aldi where all the cereals like off-brand. It's like it's not Captain
Aldi's
Crunch,
awesome.
it's Captain Smutch or something. Some weird, you know what I'm talking about?
It's like Stephen He, where everything is off-brand. He walks in. It's not Captain Marvel. It's Captain Look At or something like that. It's just like, what?
That's an Aldi's with their cereal, bro. It's just so funny.
Yeah, Captain Wonder. There you go.
It's like the striped kitty. What?
Yeah, the striped kitty. With that said, tell us in the comment section down below your favorite thing from the Dollar General or the Dollar Tree. With that said, we love y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Toodles.
See you guys.